they're all here right now. So they're the ones we're going to be speaking to. I think
Yes, I can give them the content.
Shamim has executive media. She has like the professional cameras. So I think we're going to have it right now. They have already started. They are still in Jayden'S. So we are trying to control now they're going to make him sit here. Yes, Shamim, to generate a transfer, you need to use agenda jitu tunaenda mtiani. Yes. So kwa agenda akateba akala for you. Faye, what made my akatebe? Mugamba je. Sorry. There is a chair here. Chair. Azze, alina by'agenza kino. I got you. Kubira amabino balina kye bamaliriza abasawo mukubire banange kubira ku mabino kwata yalina essimu eri mama naye gyagenda kale nakatukole essimu yogera yiteeno namwe mulekeraawo. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming. And I want to believe that we're all here for Jayden. You can call him Jayden. That's how most people know him. His real names are Kayanja Timothy. Today, we're going to have the medical team speak to us. We have been having a lot of hearsay. Jayden echimutawanya. So most people have been having a lot of miscommunications about his real health status. And as we have been updated, mostly through Shamim and a few people that have been tailing his progress, he has been here at TMR, going through a lot of medical checkups, trying to get his health status straight. So we're going to have the responsible individuals speak to us so that tujewo chiri echibaddewo, and of course to also know the way forward. People have been contributing money through the GoFundMe, through the mobile money, through phones. Other people came through to give us cash, and we thank all of them immensely. But for now, twagala tutegeere what is happening right now. How is Jayden's or Timo's current health status, health situation, and tuzakochi. Also, I think this will help ababaddeyo nga bakyesikamu okubeera nga batuwa ssente oba okubeera nga bateekayo obuyambi, kijja kuyambako mutegeere bulungi kati ekiriwo ne ssente ezeetaagibwa. So in front of us, of course, kantandikire wano, we have Mami Jayden, Mami Timo. Abalabye ku interviews Timo, he talks about his mother a lot. So Mami webale nnyo okujja. Thank you so much. Tukwagala nnyo. Of course, tulina Kayanja Timothy. That is our guest of honor today, Jayden. Thank you so much for making sure that he is with us today. And the people that are going to be talking to us, tulina our chief coordinator of everything that has been happening. That is Shamim Zubeda, Yant Halo, like, oh my God. And the people that are going to be talking to us, we have Dr. Oscar Mogera, who is Jayden's attending physician. Thank you so much. We have Dr. Erasmus Okedo, who is the critical care physician over here. And then we also have Dr. Daniel M. Talemwa. People have been hearing Daniel today. We get to see him in the flesh. That is today we have the executive director, Dr. Daniel M. Talemwa. Of course, he's here with us. Thank you so much for gracing this very short event. I want to recognize all the people that have come today, our media, the YouTubers, the TikTokers, the TV representatives. We have NBS, we have Baba TV, we have NTV, BBS. Thank you. Sugar, thank you so much. So, I don't know who's going to speak first, but Shamim Sokogoza Kubantu.
Okay. Njagala okusookera ddala nga tetunnabagenda mu maaso engeri gye tuli ku kintu kya bulamu. Let us have a prayer first. Tulyoke tugende mu maaso. Tusaba Nnaalongo Lewis ajje atuwe essaala. Yes. Essaala tuwuliriza ne twewombeeka. Hello. Hi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Most important. Mwebale nnyo. Atarazangako yatamanyi how important this is. It is very important to all of us. Thank you so much. As a mother, I am glad nti waliyo omuntu aviriddeyo omwana nga Jayden n'amubeererawo. So let's have a prayer so that we pray that God takes this to another level. Heavenly Father, we come into your presence on this day, Father. We thank you for Jayden's life. We thank you that he's alive at this moment. We thank you that TMR has stood for him. We thank you that you're still fighting for his life. We thank you that you're going to do miraculous things in his life. We thank you for all his friends that are standing with him. We thank you, Lord, that even as we are praying, as we are looking for money, the medicine is going to work. The bone marrow is going to work. He is going to live to see the goodness of the Lord. He's going to enjoy his life. He is going to be more than a conqueror. Lord, as we're in this meeting, in this press conference, Father, we pray that whoever has money to give us, let them give it to us. Buli alina sente zaffe mu nsawo Mukama azituwe. Buli abadde alowooza zituwa ng'akyalinamu akaganye Mukama t'omutima gwe azituwe. Taata twegayiridde Mukama, tuli wano Mukama nga tunoonya sente za Jayden. Sente si za kulya, sente si za kudigida, sente si za kwonoona, si za kwejjalabe naye za kutaasa bulamu. Mukama sente ze tunoonya nnyingi nnyo. Abantu bamanyi emitwalo 4 n'ekitundu naye tunoonya almost emitwalo 10. Era gwagenda ozituwa, gwagenda okupepinga we, kuba gwe kabaka, gwe nannyini ssente, gwe nannyini bulamu, era bino ogenda biwa Jayden. Mu linnya erya Yesu eritalina buyinike. Amen. Okay, twebaza nnyo Nnaalongo Lewis okubeera ng'ate atututtemu awo. Karo abadde abayisaamu mu Luzungu naye omulabi waffe aliku wonna wooli mutulabira as of now because aba YouTubers bangi, ba TikTokers tulinawo bangi, ba representatives okuva mu TV ez'enjawulo. Njagala okwebaza buli muntu gwe nkubidde essimu bibadde bya mangu mangu naye buli gwe nkubidde asobodde okubeera nga gy'ate era bangi bakyajja. So abasindisa ba representatives namwe mbebaza buli wa TV gwe nkubidde ndowooza NTV tugikubidde leet ne NBS ku saidi ya kuba nti batuteera mu bullet zaabwe ez'amaanyi zetumanyi wano era nabo ne bakkiriza. So njagala okubategeeza nti olunaku olwaleero tuli wano ku TMR hospital eddwaliro eryasalawo okutekinga on Jayden n'embeera ye era ne bakkiriza okubeera nti babeera naffe. Tuli wano okubawa medical report abantu gye babadde beebuuza nti Jayden mulwadde oba si mulwadde, bituufu oba si bituufu, bulwadde ki obumuluma era bwetaaga ki, era eddwaliro lya TMR ligenda okubeera nga lituyambako ttiimu yaabwe okutubuulira nti twetaaga mutwala wa, ssente twetaaga mmeka, buli kimu kye tugenda okuba nga tumanya olunaku olwaleero. Nkusaba bw'olaba vidiyo eno olunaku olwaleero eri oyo abadde akyalinamu enkenyera ku bulwadde bwa Jayden ogyongereyo ogitambuze. Yes, tuli ku TMR twagala okwebaza eddwaliro tubaze ne Dr. Daniel okubeera nga okutukkiriza tukolere press conference ku ddwaliro lye kubanga tuleekaana nga tuli disorganized naye okubeera nga atukkiriza tujje tukolere wano ate nga alinawo n'abalwadde be tekisangika bannange. So we are here to give you a medical report then n'okubawa accountability ku nsimbi yammwe gye mwakatuwa. So tugenda kubeera nga tufuna medical report okuva ew'abasawo. Tugenda tutandike ne Dr.
Mr. Oscar. Just introduce me next.
Okay. So, Muzikirize, let me introduce the Executive Director of TMR, Dr. Daniel N. Talemwa. Dr. Dr. Wafata Sobia, Mugwanga Lineria Uganda, because omuntu yenna ayingirawo okutaasa obulamu nga tafuddeeyo ssente mmeka, tafuddeeyo bwe tugenda kwetala ku ddwaliro lye, tafuddeeyo nsobi zaffe n'ataziraba, naye ye nga yeewaddeyo okutaasa bulamu. Ekyo kintu kya muwendo nnyo ffe gye tuli. So Dokita agenda kwogerako gye tuli, ate oluganda lwe bbanga lye mmaze nga njogera naye ndowooza mweno wiiki njogedde oluzungu lwonna lwe nasoma bwe mbadde ne Dr. Daniel. Era bakakasa tugenda kubeera nga eddwaliro lino terisobya, tujja defending obulamu bwaffe bwonna. So Dokita agenda kwogerako gye tuli atwanjulira abasawo abali ku Jayden na biki bye tulina okumanya. So Dokita nzikiriza tukwanirize oyogereko eri abantu. Tetwandyagadde oyimirire nga tutudde, twagala oyimirire nga tuyimiridde, bw'oyimirira tutuule.
My name is Sugar.
Yes. So Doctor, yoyo Doctor.
Hi, Doctor.
We can sit here.
So Doctor agenda kwogerako gye tuli nga kalidde wansi. Ebintu bino ebyekikopo tujja bitegeera mpola. Nange wano wentudde siri namanyiiro yimirira naye byakutuula. So Doctor, tusaba oyogereko eri Abannayuganda. Abantu abasinga bali live wano. Yefa abagenda okuddayo okweditinga abatono. Naye abasinga bali live. Yes.
Thank you very much, Zubeda.
Yes, Doctor.
The media houses who are here, the people who are watching online, my fellow doctors, our patient, Jayden, and your mom. I don't want to say that it's a pleasure for us to be here, but circumstances have found us here. Because we are standing here for a noble cause that touches each and everyone's life. Jayden needs me, needs you, and your mere presence here means a lot, because the information that you're picking from here is going to be shared across the country and beyond borders. And that's information that's going to help us raise the much needed funding for Jayden. Definitely Jayden needs support, and some of this support may not be readily available in this country. As the doctors will highlight, you'll see that what we need right now as friends and relatives of Jayden is to push this drive of rising finances for his support. Again, my name is Dr. Daniel Talemwa. I'm the Executive Director of this great hospital, TMR International Hospital. And with me, I have Dr. Oscar Mayanja, who is our internal physician. And we also have Dr. Resma Sokelo, who is the critical care physician. So when Jayden came to us on Friday, he was critically ill, and he was in the hands of our critical care physician. That is why Dr. Kelo is here. But on top of that, for the continued care, he is in the hands of Dr. Oscar, the physician, who is also here. Okay, today we hope to have hematology, but he was caught up. So we're hoping in the next press conference, which we may have a week also, we shall be joined by another specialist, and that is the hematologist. So for now, Jayden is under the care of Dr. Kelo and Dr. Oscar, and then the hematologist will also take part pretty soon. Thank you very much, and I'll go straight to Dr. Kelo because he's the one who received him on Friday when he came to us in critical conditions. Thank you. Dr. Kelo?
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. My colleague Oscar is here. Jayden, family, media houses, and the rest of the channels that will be broadcasting this. It's quite unfamiliar for us to have this kind of setup, but the cause of this particular one matters so much that we must come together. And first, from our desk, we'd like to thank you for coming in together with us to stand together with Timothy for this particular cause. My name is Erasmus Okello. I'm an intensive care physician, and I take care of patients who are in a critical state. And critical illness means a state where someone is quite sick and vital organs are being affected, and their life is at stake if nothing is done in that period to reverse and put them back in line for recovery. So we did receive Timothy, I like to call him by his name, Timothy, on Friday after a distress call came through our lines that he was having trouble with breathing and he had chest pain. With the background of sickle cell disease, which is a condition where your red blood cells tend to switch their shape from a round shape to a rigid, straightened shape that looks like a sickle. For those of us who saw those things in agriculture, they are things they use for cutting grass. So they turn into that shape, and unfortunately with that shape, it means those red blood cells don't move through blood vessels very nicely in that state. So they get stuck in the small blood vessels of the body, and when they get stuck, it means the process, the function of delivering oxygen to tissues is impaired. But also the function of organs gets affected because the blood doesn't flow through them nicely to move to the next destination. These red blood cells will become quite fragile, so they can easily burst open, and so they lose their function of carrying oxygen. And so in this state, it becomes quite an emergency that somebody has trouble with carrying oxygen through their body because the amount of hemoglobin and therefore the red blood cells that carry it through the body is reduced, but also the same red blood cells have changed their shape such that they don't transit through your blood vessels nicely to carry oxygen. So in that state, important steps must be taken quickly to identify the specific complication, to intervene in terms of support of the organs affected, and then start reversing the cause of that problem. So this is why Jayden was admitted to the intensive care unit. The complication he had developed was a kind where the sickle cells tend to plug the arteries inside the lung, such that you don't have enough blood running through the lungs to pick up oxygen. And so suddenly you're breathing, but the oxygen is not crossing the blood as it's supposed to. Second is that the blood levels of oxygen all over the body drop, but also these same blood cells are supposed to push blood to certain parts of the lung, which start to suffer from lack of oxygen, and that is evidenced by chest pain. So he came in to us with those complications, shortness of breath, low oxygen levels dropping all the way to the 70s, and he had chest pain. So he was immediately taken to the intensive care unit where he was placed on oxygen therapy, and a number of tests were performed to try to chase down the trigger of this particular incident. Remember that people with sickle cell disease live with us, as we've known Jayden being with us in the community. But every now and again, something happens. Maybe it's just an acute illness. Maybe it's a bit of stress. Maybe it's a bit of dehydration here and there. That can trigger this crisis where the abnormal cells in their body, abnormal red blood cells, turn into sickle shape and push them into a crisis of organ dysfunction. So in this particular case, after providing me the oxygen therapy, administering some IV treatment that was meant to push the blood through the body well, we had to chase down the cause, which meant doing some tests to establish if he had, say, an infection or maybe some other issue that had triggered this particular problem, as well as look at the blood levels. The particular complication he had, where the red blood cells plug the arteries of the lung, is called acute chest syndrome. It is a deadly condition where 40 to 60% of people don't make it. if they're not treated on time. And this was quite a timely distress call and timely response for Jayden, because over the last 72 hours, we've seen him make a good turnaround to the time that he's now able to sit down here with us and talk to us. Usually in that state, the priority is to, one, support every other organ as necessary. Two is provide oxygen. But even more important is to try to dilute the number of sickle cells in the body. And so we do that first, we're just giving fluids, but also, as necessary, providing blood transfusions. And those transfusions have to be well determined in terms of the quantity that will reduce the percentage of sickle cells in the body. And then also too, blood that you get as a transfusion is not yours. It's coming from another person. And we were created in such a way that we are different from each other. And so whenever you receive blood or any tissue from anyone else, your body may not be exactly ready to accommodate it and use it the way it's supposed to without causing you problems. In other words, your immune system will detect this blood as foreign to you and start to try to fight back against it. So they must perform a number of tests to try to make sure that blood matches with yours, but also reduce the likelihood that this blood might pose a threat to you in the future in terms of your ability to receive more transfusions from other people, in terms of other hidden reactions that people can have, and those immune sensitizations. Called sensitization because when you get exposed to tissue or blood that's not yours, your immune system gets notified that it has gotten an enemy and starts to build an arsenal of weaponry against it, which is called antibodies. And so you become immune to that particular type of blood. So the concern for a person like Jayden, who receives transfusions repeatedly, is that that has to be observed as well quite closely, just to improve his chance of receiving transfusions in the future if necessary. But also, particularly this drive we're talking about of transplant. Transplant means he's going to get tissue from another person's bone marrow. And that means his immune system will still do the same thing of trying to realize that this is foreign to him, and so it must fight back against it. So we try to get this blood for that purpose of safeguarding him for compatibility with his donor, and the chance that when given the transplant, it's going to be taken up by his body and tolerated very well so that it can do its job perfectly. So there are some interventions that to do on the specific type of blood we have to give him, just with that plan in mind. So these interventions happened through the time when Jayden came to us on Friday, Saturday. By Saturday evening, he had actually significantly improved, the point that he was requiring very little oxygen and occasionally could be taken off supplemental oxygen, and he could walk out of the room and join his family outdoors and participate in other activities that will help quicken his recovery, like physiotherapy and the like. So after that significant recovery, where his life was no longer a threat from the acute illness, we started involving our colleagues who do longer term care for patients like Jayden as part of the care transfer and handover process. So Dr. Oscar Mugera, who is an internal medicine specialist, that is a specialty in medicine that deals with taking care of multiple medical problems of human beings. Technically, you can say he's the opposite of a surgeon. He will treat medical problems without cutting you up. Okay, we cut sometimes, but predominantly we use medications to solve problems. He's an internal medicine specialist that is commonly called in our setting a physician. Okay, so we involved him because now the acute life-threatening complications had settled down, and we needed to transition Jayden to long-term care, but also preventive interventions that will take him home and not risk bringing him back to us so soon or ever with the same complication. So Dr. Oscar took over lead responsibility from Saturday onwards up to date. And I'm happy that we've not been involved in the care, we've not been called back to, to centrally manage Jayden, meaning that he's on a road to recovery, and we haven't had any backslide in his trajectory. So I think for now, without necessarily delving into the details of our trade and what we do in the intensive care unit in so much detail, that's really what happened. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Mubufunze olulimi Oluganda, omwami ono kyategeeza nti ye omulimu gwe ogusinga bw'aba ayitiddwa kitegeeza omulwaddewo muyinnyo gye tuyita ICU, gye tuyita intensive care, ye gy'akola byakwasaganya, era nti olunaku I think bino tubadde tubiraba ku page za Shamim nti olunaku lwe yasooka okujja awo ate ennyo emirimu gye we gyatandikira okubeera ng'ate agikwasaganya embeera gye yalimu ng'omubiri gw'oba omusaayi gwe tegusobola musapooti n'okufuna oxygen, era ky'oba olaba yalina obuzibu mu kussa n'ebiyitwa ebirala, naye nga bakola buli ekisoboka okubeera ng'ate bamuzza engulu nti by ku Lwomukaaga yabeera ng'ate asobola okubeera ng'atambulako n'afulumako, ekyali tekisoboka luli nga amawulire gaakafuluma, luli nga yeetaagirwa ddala external help, obuyambi oxygen. External bakyogera yali yeetaaga obuyambi bw'ebyuma ebizungu okubeera nga tebimuyambako omubiri okuwanirira n'okubeera ng'afuna oxygen. So by Lwamukaaga agambye emirimu gye ne gitandika okukenderako. Kyetwebaza Mukama because mu kaseera ako n'omulwadde yennyini yali atiddemu, abasinga baali batiddemu, naye twebaza Mukama nti atuusawo. Mpozi n'ekirala kyagambye nti emirimu emirala gye badde bakola kugezaako balina ebintu bye bakola omusaayi gwe babadde bamuwa okubeera ng'ate gusobola okumanyira omubiri so that tukira ku kiri kyetuliko ekyetuddukirira ekya bone marrow transplant, nti omusaayi gwalina mu mubiri gujja kuba gusobola okulwanyisa obuzibu bwonna bwonna obuba buleeteddwa, kubanga ne bone marrow gye bagenda muteeka mujjukira siiye, so omubiri gulina okuba nga tegukola ki nga gusobola okukikkiriza. Kati omusaayi gwe babadde bamuwa gwe gugezaako ate okubeera nga gumanyiiza omubiri ku biri ebinene ebiddako. N'agamba nti era ndowooza after that kwe kumuweereza omwami gwe tugenda okuba nga tuwuliriza, era ye yeebaza Mukama nti tannaddamu kubeera ng'akubirwa, services ze tezinnaba kuddamu kubeera nga zeetaagisibwa, okubeera nti kitegeeza bw'atuuse twebaza Mukama nti emirimu gye baakola gimusobozesezza okubeera ate eri mu balwadde ate abalala nga teyeetaaga kubeera mu intensive care. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hello.
So kati tugenda kuba tuwuliriza ku physician ate atuwe update ku ngeri Jayden ndowooza gy'alimu akaseera. Let's just remove them.
Balamusiza nnyo basebo ne banyina. Amannya nze Mugera Oscar. Ndi muzzukulu wa Mugema n'eddira Nkima. So nsobola okuba versions bbiri nja kubeera quick. Kuba mmanyi media ezimu zikozesa Luganda oba mu Luzungu. Kansooke n'olulimi oluzaaliranwa Oluganda. Amannya nga babuulidde, physician mu Luganda abeera omusawo omukugu mu ndwadde ez'omunda. Omugwamu n'obulwadde obwa nnalubiri oba gwe tuyita sikosel. Kati nga Dr. Erasmus bw'agambye, Mwami Timothy yatutuukako wiiki ewedde ng'embeera mbi. Olw'obulwadde bwa nnalubiri yali afunye complication gye tuyita acute chest syndrome. Kitegeeza obusuwa obw'omu mawuggwe buba buzibye, kireetera omuntu okuba nga tassa bulungi, oxygen okendera mu mubiri oluusi n'obuli mu kifuba n'obubonero obulala. So we yajjira oxygen we yali akendedde okuva ku 100, omuntu owa bulijjo abeera wakati wa 98 n'ekikumi. Naye Mwami Timothy we yajjira oxygen we yali ali ku 70%. so ne bamuyitirawo ne batandika obujjanjabi obwetaagisa. Complication eno y'emu ku complication gye tusinga okutya mu bulwadde bwa nnalubiri. In fact yesinga okutta mu mbeera eyo. So ne bamujjanjaba paka we bantuukako. We bantuukirako omulimu ogwasooka ogwange gwali kwa okukebera okulaba obujjanjabi bwabaddeko newa we bumutuusizza mu mbeera gy'alimu. Then ekirala kyali kyakulaba okupulaaninga n'omulwadde ye ki kyayagala mu maaso tulabe ng'abasawo ngeri ki gye tuyinza okukituukiriza. So kye twasooka okulaba mbu emabega gy'avudde tetwalabawo treatment eri continuous oba obujjanjabi obwegoberera obutera okwetaagisibwa mu buli mbeera omuntu aba n'endwadde ey'olubeera chronic condition. So naye mu yanokolayo yatugamba waliwo eddagala etutera okukozesa mu nnalubiri. Eddagala lino liyambako complications zino oba crisis obutajja nnyo. Eddagala lye tuyita hydroxyurea. N'atugamba yaligezaako enfunda eziwera. Era abantu abangi nnyo libakoledde era abalina obulwadde oba bakimanyi. Naye ye bwe yalikozesa unfortunately yafuna side effects zonna oba obulabe bwonna obw'eddagala. Naye ate benefit n'atakola ki? N'atagifuna. Kati ekyo ne kituwa ekyokulowooza mbu kirabika strategy eyo tejja muyamba ate emukosa. N'atubuulira mbu yali alina essuubi okufuna obujjanjabi obusukkako wano. Waliwo obujjanjabi bungi bwe tukozesa. Naye mu Uganda unfortunately eddagala lino erya hydroxyurea liri available. Mu nsi yaffe ey'abasayansi era ly'eddagala erisobeddwa eritegeerebwa ennyo okukendeeza ki complication emu. Amalagala amalala gyegali naye tegali readily available mu ggwanga tetugafuna. Agamu galina complication zaago naye agalala era ga bbeeyi nnyo. Kati n'atugamba yali atunuulira option gye tugamba esobola okuwonya obulwadde buno. So option gye tuyita bone marrow transplant nga kitegeeza tufuna obusomyo ne tuteeka omwe kubanga obulwadde buno buva ku busomyo okukola obutofaali obw'omusaayi ze tuyita red blood cells nga teziri formed bulungi ne zivaako ebizibu ebyo nga bwe mubimanyi. So bwe yatugamba ekintu kino naffe ne twalayininga goozi zaffe oba obujjanjabi okulaba nga tumutuusa ku kyayagala. So mu nkola eyo ne tumuwa eddagala eryali mujja mu kizibu kiri ekisooka ekya crisis eyo eya acute chest syndrome paka emumulabira wano mbu kati asobola okubeerawo nga tali ku oxygen n'okutambula nga tali ku oxygen ekitabaddeewo. Then ekintu ekyakye tukoze kwe kumulinkinga kye tuliko already n'abasawo abakugu ab'omusaayi mu ggwanga bayinza okuba tebasukka 5. So tukontaktinzeeko 3 tusecurinze tufunyeyo appointment enkya tugenda mwetwalira ffennyini ne mami n'omulwadde tulabe side ey'omusawo oyo ow'omusaayi Dr. Daniel Gwaddaga agamba gwe bayita hematologist alabe possibility ey'ekintu kino n'okupreparinga omulwadde. Procedure eno tuba tetunagikola waliwo ebintu omubiri gwe balina obbiyisaamu okulamba obusome buli bwe bugendamu omubiri tegubuzira procedure okugaana ne complications zino okulaba mbu tuzeetegekera singa ziba zinajja omulwadde ne tumuteeka mu mbeera wasobola okussuuka obulungi ng'ekoleddwa. Ekyo kigenda kukolebwa enkya. I think that's okay for Uganda.
Yes.
It's brief enough. So, okay. All right. So, my name is Dr. Mugera Oscar. I am a physician by training, and I deal with a wide range of medical conditions, including sickle cell disease, which is the reason why we are here today. So, we received Mr. Timothy last week when he was suffering one of the complications of sickle cell disease, which we call acute chest syndrome. This is a life-threatening condition, and in medicine, we consider it a medical emergency. It is, again, one of the biggest cause of death when it comes to sickle cell disease. So when he was received, he was initially taken over by the intensive care team. This was simply because his oxygen was dangerously low and needed support to get out of this condition. Usually the blood level, the oxygen in the blood level should be well above 95 or 98, all the way to 100%. His was 70%. So the team of doctors, Dr. Okelo, nurses, lab technicians, and the rest of the team addressed this complication quickly, and I think within 24, 48 hours, he had already shown improvement. So I was invited in to assess his chronic care for the condition and also to align medical treatment to the patient's goals. So in my assessment, I realized that he did not attend chronic care fully, which was impacting the quality of life he was having earlier. And he also mentioned that he had been on a drug we call hydroxyurea. This is a common drug that is known world over, which we use to reduce the frequency of complications that arise from sickle cell. So unfortunate for him is that when this was tried on several occasions, he suffered literally all the complications of this drug, but did not get the medical benefit which we intended. So he also highlighted that he had had hope to change to a different modality of treatment. So there are other modalities of treatment, some other drugs, but they are not readily available in our setting. And they are also not as studied as hydroxyurea. So he mentioned that he was trying to look at a potential cure of this condition, which requires what we call a bone marrow transplant. Part of my work after the assessment was to align our goals with his. So the bone marrow transplant is a potential cure for sickle cell disease, but because it is a procedure that is undertaken by specialists other than myself, we have embarked on a journey of linking him up to a specialist we call a hematologist. This is a doctor who specializes in all kinds of blood disorders, including sickle cell disease. In the country, we probably have not more than 5, but we are in contact, we are in touch with about 3. And so far we have secured an appointment with him tomorrow morning with one of the prominent hematologists in the country. So we hope that that input will also help us to prepare his body for the procedure. There are medications that have to be taken and assessments. Some of them we have done here, others he will advise and then we shall include. And we are willing as a hospital to walk through this journey with him. As a physician, part of the work we do, apart from treating disease, is to advocate for our patient, for their well-being. So our talk today, apart from helping Mr. Timothy here, we also throw light to the public, because I know many people didn't know or don't know that this condition can potentially be cured. So we are trying to set him on the path for cure with support from all of you, the general public, and the rest of the team of doctors, myself, Dr. Erasmus, and many people who are not on camera today. So we have done some assessments. We have also identified some other complications, which means that having this transplant may potentially help him. One of them, we did a scan for the heart, which showed some complication with the valve. The heart has a sort of gates that make blood flow in one direction and not backwards. So some of them were weakened as a complication of this disease, and then also a bit of increased pressures in the lungs. So we hope that if this goes through, if the assessment is okay, and then the hematologist also okays us to do this procedure, we think having the bone marrow transplant may actually potentially change his life, reduce the complication, and maybe his life overall, the quality of life should be better after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mgira.
Doctor, thank you so much. Doctor, alina ekintu kyayogedde kyenjagala ddiremu abooluganda kyataayogedde mu Luganda. Bwe mwamututte mu scan, tusaba okiddiremu abooluganda. bakitegeere bulungi omutwali eyo wansi asonda omutwalo gwe ategeere bulungi oyogedde.
Kale. So twabadde tukoze waliwo ke tuyita kasikaana k'omutima mu luzungu oba mu lusawo ke tuyita echo. So bwe twakoze sikaani eno twasanze mbu obugeeti obumu obw'omutima bunafunafu nga kino kiva ku bulwadde buno okubeera mu mubiri ebbanga naddala nga omuntu tafunye obujjanjabi obuyinza okukendeeza amaanyi g'obulwadde. Then nature ne tukebera ne tusanga nga bwe muwulira pressure eno eya bulijjo, so organe ezisinga mu mubiri zisobola okuba ne pressure eya waggulu, tusanga amawugwe gano galimu pressure eneneko etali ya bulijjo. So tusuubira mbu ebintu bino ebimu bijja kutuyambako okutegeeza abasawo bali abagenda okukola transplant eno obuzito bw'ekizibu kino bwe bamala okukola assessment ne bagamba kiryoke okukola transplant eno kijja kutuyambako okuzza ebintu bino emabega bireme okweyongera mu maaso, so that obulamu bwe okuva kati okudda maaso bubeera butangaavu nnyo okusinga nga bwe bubadde emabega. Thank you.
Okay. Tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzige bannange. So nsuubira buli abalina ebibuuzo mugenda bibisengeka bulungi, buli omu okidirecting wa dokita gy'oyagala kigende, dokita abeere ng'atuddamu, then Dr. Daniel simanyi oba ebigabo byawedde oba olina by'oyagala okutunyonyola ku bulwadde bwake.
No, that is it.
That is it.
The doctors have said.
Yes. So ndowooza tugende mu question and answer. If you're ready, nga mutubuulira. If you're ready, if you have no questions. Abayina ebibuuzo, bwemba temulina ffe tubuuze.
Nze kambuulizeko abantu baagala okumanya ssente zikyetaagibwa
Ezaki.
ez'okusoma.
Kibuuzo kiriwa?
Ziteetaagibwa.
Yes, sente zikyetaagibwa, sugar bwezzo oba abantu baagala kumanya oba sente zikyetaagibwa. Tugenda kubawa accountability, then tugenda kubuuzaako wano dokita atubuulireko sente ziyinza kuba nga mmeka eza bone marrow. Where do you recommend? Ekirala nze ng'omuntu kambuuza ekibuuzo kyange. So doctor, this goes to anyone who would love to answer that question. Okusinziira ku we mwalabye omulwadde waffe Timothy n'ebbanga lye mubaddeko naye, bwa bone marrow gy'agenda okukola eyinza kuba mu ssente nga mmeka, because ffe twateekawo ekyaffe ne tugamba it is $45,000 naye tetumanyi zezo ezimala oba twa-estimating ekintu ekifu. Then another question, will you be able to recommend, will you be able to help Timothy so that you can recommend a good hospital either in Dubai, Turkey, India, with TMR team help out to recommend a good hospital for his transplant?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question because it's an administrative question as well as clinical. So right now, yes, Dr. Oscar has said that we are working with hematologists to give support, but for sure, Jayden needs a bone marrow transplant for definitive care. Okay, that is very, very important. The cost of the transplant, of course, is dependent on the findings of his body, the country where he's going to do it from, okay, and overall how he's going to recover post the bone marrow transplant. Because his care is not only the transplant that he'll get. After the transplant, he still has a journey to be taken care of. So I think what the team estimated was just the transplant only, but they had not looked at the entire journey to recovery and to improve his quality of life. So the cost $50,000. Okay, in the US, it can reach that level, also in Dubai. But there are countries that have done these tests, these procedures multiple times and have experience, and their costs have significantly come down. One of the countries we're looking at the moment is India, and the other one is Turkey. Okay, so we're going to start after we have seen the hematologist. He's also going to have some recommendations which countries and hospitals we can go to.
Okay.
We shall contact those countries and the hospitals to also do a background check, because we're interested to see how many cases have you had of this type. Okay, as you know, India is a big market as well. So for us to go there, we must be very clear that the hospital we're going to has the experience to handle our patients. Very, very important. And after that, we shall make recommendations to basically take him out of the country for the treatment. Also remember there's preparation for his donor. Okay? Currently we're looking at the brother who is the donor, but also there's a test that have to be done on the donor for that to happen. So to be explicit in the question of Zubeida, the cost is dependent on the country. We're looking at India, we're looking at an average cost of about, what we estimated is within the range, but it is only for the treatment. Okay, I was telling on the side that as we look for funding, our target we should target about 100,000. Okay, that will take care of him from the time they start preparing himself and the donor for the transit itself, to the transplant, and then the post-care. Remember, the post-care is extremely very critical, because that's the support he will need to make sure that his body accepts the transplant. Maybe Dr. Kello can add something onto that and shed more light onto that.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. So just in line with that, first is when we talk about anything medical, it means we are doing an intervention for its benefits the person. And usually to choose an intervention, we balance it with the risks that are potentially standing in the way of the person. So where the benefit significantly outweighs the risk, that's an intervention that we recommend and pursue. In this particular journey of getting a bone marrow transplant, as I mentioned earlier, Timothy, Jayden, is going to receive a tissue, okay, which is called a bone marrow tissue, from someone else. And that is supposed to merge with his body and starts performing the process that his body will be doing, except producing the normal red blood cells instead of the so-called red blood cells. We jumped into this by talking about sickle cell disease, the complication that Jayden came with, and now the transplant bit. And I'm not so sure if all of us understand what sickle cell disease is in the first place. But essentially, in short, it's a genetic condition where one inherits genes, okay, usually from both parents. And those genes determine the shape and structure of part of your hemoglobin. When you have two genes of that kind that shape this gene in an abnormal manner, it means in episodes of stress, dehydration, illness of any kind, these cells tend to turn into so-called shape, in which case their capacity to carry oxygen and to transit through blood vessels is affected and causes a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and damage to organs as someone grows. To the point that usually finding someone the age of Jayden means there's been a lot of work that's gone in, especially by his family, to support him, to wake up in the middle of the night, to run to hospital and be discharged. Someone midway through the journey back home, something happened, you have to turn back to hospital. It's been the journey of this family, okay? So this is a journey that people with sickle cell disease endure. And it's a life of so much pain. Somehow, they get, I would say in a way, tired of getting all our sympathy, okay, when they're always in pain. So they actually become the strength of everyone. You can imagine the trauma the mother has had to endure for the last 20 to 23 years of Jayden's life, knowing that her son is in pain and they're going to hospital, not knowing that they're coming back home. That is the kind of trauma that you experience as a caretaker. And for a long time, the actual cure to this did not technically exist. All you had to do was to struggle with the complications. someone loses so much blood, you have to go and transfuse. Somebody has acute chest syndrome and they are their life is on the line because they can't breathe. So you have to run to hospital, hopefully get to ICU. ICU business itself or practice is quite new to our setting. So you can imagine how people died because of complications of sickle cell disease. Then there are other complications, injury to organs like the lung, the kidney, the intestine, the brain, the bone marrow itself, the bones, you know. So this is the kind of life that Jayden has had to face for the last 23 years of his life. Thankfully, bone marrow transplantation is currently the next best intervention to try to change the pathway of life of patients with sickle cell disease. But it involves borrowing tissue from someone else and putting it to your body. And your body is designed to reject it because it's not you. So the process of doing bone marrow transplant involves trying to identify someone who's as close to you genetically as possible to limit the risks of rejection. Then, even when you're so close genetically, to the point that even for people who are identical twins, there may be some sort of incompatibility in some things because this life touches us in different ways and deal with it in different ways. To the point that even in your identical twins, after a few years on Earth, there are some that are not exactly the same between the two of you. So, in that regard, getting a donor who is not Jayden, in other words, borrowing tissue from someone else, means that his body is going to face a few challenges with dealing with the new tissue. And one of them that you fear the most is called rejection, or better, graft versus host disease. In other words, his body's immunity is going to be struggling and fighting with the new tissue. And that fight doesn't just stay in the bone marrow, it goes to every other organ. Second is that to make sure that his body can take up this bone marrow, they are going to have to deal with his immune system a certain way. Some drugs they will give him to try to reduce the, to dampen his immune reactivity so that it can accommodate this new tissue. That also tends to put someone in that state where the immunity is slightly depressed, and so you are prone to other infections. And so there's going to be a lifestyle modification. As you can see, we're already teaching him how to wear a mask when he's walking around, because in that state when your immunity is depressed, even a common cold can be nasty. Okay, some people love you so much they come and hang around you, but they don't remember that they had a cold, they're coughing quite badly before they came to you. In a state when your immunity is depressed, that can be bad. For that period when he's going to require those medications. So then there are other things. So overall, the transplant is a very important step. The next step will now be making sure, one, his body accepts this donor tissue and does the best job with it to keep him healthy and reverse some of the complications that he could have developed by that time. But second also is that for every procedure comes some side effects, like I mentioned already. If you get medications that repress your immunity, you may be immunosuppressed for a bit. So he's going to need some medications to protect him, some sort of living conditions to protect him, until his body gains its strength and works well with this bone marrow tissue. So this means usually when they're doing transplant, there are a lot of tests that are done, first of all, which are costly. We are going to do them here, but even the center that's going to do this procedure is going to repeat some of them at quite a big cost. A second is usually after the transplant, patients in this state are placed in special rooms where they are protected from infections and the like until their immunity picks up. And then after that, there's a lifestyle modification and the like that he has to follow, and essentially be on some medications, which are so costly for quite a while, until the hematologists recommend maybe modification or stoppage. So essentially, that adds to the cost of getting a transplant. It's a life-transforming procedure. It is the one thing that could change, the life of Jayden, beyond the person that we just come to love for the way he makes us all happy, to the person who actually also has freedom to enjoy life the same way we do without the encumbrance of pain and suffering and needing to go to hospital for a chance to live. So perhaps, if anything, that should help us understand that the money that we are looking for to support Jayden goes beyond just the money that we are talking about in terms of getting the transplant. It's a lot bigger, but it is manageable once we come together as a community. So thank you so much for being there for him. Thank you for disseminating his message, and hopefully to those who will respond to this call as well, you are his blessing, you are his angels. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kenny.
I think
He's going to say to
Badde nsaba mbigatte byombi boogedde mu Luganda mu butikitiki butono. So ku ky'essente Dr. Daniel abadde tugambye essente eza estimatingwa $4,000 egya dola giri mu range, naye obujjanjabi obwo buyinza osukka mu ssente ezo. Ekyo kimu. Ekyokubiri, obujjanjabi bulina emitendera esatu. Waliwo obujjanjabi nga tetunnakola procedure eyo eya bone marrow transplant. Waliwo obujjanjabi nga tumaze. So bw'aba nga tannagikola, waliwo testi ze tukebera okulaba mbu donor oli bw'anaawa obusomyo n'abuwa Mr. Timothy, omubiri tegujja bugaana. Bwe kiba kinaabaawo, waliwo era n'amalagala ge bayinza okukozesa okureducinga ki risk eyo. Ekirala, mu eyo season omubiri balina bakiyita conditioning mu lulimi oba bijjonze nkiwulira mu bakyala n'enviiri, simanyi oba bifaanagana n'eyo. Naye conditioning eno omubiri baguteeka, simanyi oba bifaanagana, abakyala bajja tubwe, omubiri baguteeka mu mbeera nga gusobola okukkiriza ebitundu oba obusomi oba obutofaali obw'omuntu omulala. Kubanga naturally Katonda yatutonda mbu omubiri bwe gugendamu ekintu nga tebakikoleramu mukirwanyisa ng'obuwuka. Kati eyo process ya conditioning naye eriko cost eyinza okuba nga tebaliddwa mu zino ssente. Then bwe tutuuka procedure yennyini nayo ejja kutwala cost. Naye era omulwadde bw'aba amaze okufuna bone marrow, waliwo eddagala era lyalina okubeerako okuziyiza omubiri okuzira obusomi bwe baba bataddemu procedure efiire obwereere. Then ekirala kyagambye mbu nno essente entuufu zijja kusinziira wa we tukoledde procedure eno. N'anokolayo mbu amawanga agamu agaakulaakulana edda nga mu US eyinza okutuuka 40 zisobola okuwera $10,000 egya dola. Naye waliwo ensi endala ezikoze procedure eno emirundi mingi ne bagiperfectinga nga basobola okugikola ku ssente entono. Ku nsi ezo n'anokolayo India ne Turkey. Naye byonna okubikola tujja kwetaaga opinion eyo gye tugambye eya hematologist atugayidinge okusinziira ku assessment gye tunaba tulinawo awo wawe tuyinza okugenda ne cost eyo. So kitegeeza ssente entuufu tuyinza obutazimanya, range gye eyasuggestingibwa eyinza okumala just for the procedure, naye waliwo obujjanjabi before obanga tetunakola procedure waliyo n'obujjanjabi after. So cost yennyini eri likely oba esuubirwa okusukka ku ssente ezo.
Tweyanziza nnyo Dokita. Wali alina ekibuuzo? Naalongo ndabyo olina ekibuuzo.
Amaze n'akiddamu kubanga baatebaaga nti omubiri gwabo olitaga nti nga neebuuza nti bamala omujjanjaba biba biwedde bamala omulongoosa omusawo n'akirambika nti aba yeetaaga
mbadde mbuuza ekiri nti obulwadde buno buli genetic. Mbadde mbuuza Timothy kasita bamala omukolako procedure eyitawo kati agenda kubawonya, right?
Correct.
Bw'anaaba atuuse mu kaseera nga ye agenda kuzaala ekitegeeza ati okuba tasobola kuzaala signa oba career.
Ekyo kibuuzo kirungi naye kya science nnyo Muganda wange wandize ne tukola eyo, simanyi kyokola. So bakyusa busomyo tebakyusa genes. Wawo kye tuyita gene therapy mu bulwadde buno si kye tugezaako kufuna for Timothy. So obutofaali bwe tebujja kukyuka naye condition eyo mu busomo bwe yo ejja kukyuka. Kitegeeza risiki eri ebeerawo ku baana, naye tulina okutegeera Dr. Erasmus yakyogeddeko mu topic nene naye ffe tufokasinze ku mulwadde. Obulwadde buno okubufuna obutofaali bw'abazadde bombi bulina okuba nga bulinamu obuzibu. Singa omu aba obutofaali bwe nga bulina obuzibu omulala talina, abaana tebabufuna. Naye abaana basobola okuba at risk. Kitegeeza bwe bawasa bo okusinziira ni gwe bawasizza, abaana be bayinza okifuna. So mu bufunze obujjanjabi buno singa buba tubufunye ne bukola bulungi, Mwami Timothy aba awonye obulwadde bwa sickle cell disease. Naye genes ziba obutofaali buli aba asobola okubukola ki? Obutransmitting. Then eddagala lyagenda obeerako ate terijja kuba lya sickle cell, kubanga ye ya hydroxyurea tuba tuliteekako okukakkanya obulwadde buleme okukola damage. Obulwadde obutuuka ku buli organ, kubanga bwa musaayi, buli organ busobola okuziba amaaso, busobola oleeta stroke, tewali organ gye butasobola kukola ki? Kati bwe tufuna obusomi obupya tukontrolinga damage. In fact ezimu zisobola okuvaawo eziriwo, naye ezandibadde zijja singa obusomi buno tabufunye ziba zeewalika. Simanyi oba tukifunye. So obujjanjabi obubeera awo nga tumaze okufuna obusomi bwakukkiriza mubiri butalwanyisa oba kujjamu busomyo nga bwe nakiroganyizaako edda, mbu ekintu kyonna ekitaatondebwa mu mubiri kasita kigendamu omubiri gulina okukirwanyisa. So obwo obujjanjabi buba bukola ku ekyo, buba si bwa sickle cell, just okulaba mbu transplant eyo tebeera rejected, omubiri tegugiboola, kubanga bwe gugiboola buli kimu kiba kifudde, tuba tudde buzibu.
Wali alina ekibuuzo ekyo? Okay.
Watogera ku when the word donor comes in most cases, tuba tweyalikira if the donor is actually compatible with the person they are going to give to, and if in any way this procedure is going to affect the donor. Njagala twongereko because omuntu ayinza okubeera eyo nga mwogedde ku aftercare and all, but I believe these are other expenses. Also, what I wanted to clarify, are we going to have you done any tests on the donor to see the compatibility of the donor to our patient? Because in the initial interviews, he was talking to Shamim and he said his brother is the one going to be doing it. What is the surety, like how sure are we that he is actually compatible with him? Again.
What is the assurance?
Yes.
Class, do you want to give it?
And do we have tests here over Zaina?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. So specific to the question, first is that we are taking care of Timothy for a complication that happened in the background of his course to get him onto a donor list and on a transplant list. And so it meant that we received him in an emergency state. We learned that this drive to help him get a potential cure to this condition was underway. And so our interventions to get him out of the emergency state, which is the acute chest syndrome, the complication, had to be aligned with that. And as I mentioned previously, we also had to link him to the long-term care and addressing the long-term goals, which is this partial transplant. So we are not a transplant center. However, we have knowledge and we have colleagues who have even more knowledge than us in this area, which is why we have the appointment with the hematologist. Usually, once the patient has been assessed and determined to be a good candidate for transplant, because there are people who may not do well with the transplant either. So in his case, he fits the profile of a person who would stand to benefit significantly from getting a transplant. He's young, he's got a lot of potential in his life, ahead of him, and there are not there are no deadly complications that we have found in his body that are related to this disease having reached a point where a transplant will help him. Okay, so that's the first step. The next step is definitely identifying the donor, and the donor, as has been offered by the family, is his sibling. Usually, when you're donating organs, the idea is to try to match the genetics of the two people as close as possible. And of course, the ideal would have been an identical twin if it existed. The next would now be, in this case, a sibling or a parent, among other things. So this is ideally the next step. Now, in this case, first is you have to make sure that the donor does not have any conditions that, if they donated tissue to Timothy, would cause him problems. For example, if he has got underlying infections, okay, that would get worse, for example, with the treatments that are relevant to making a transplant happen, then that will not pass, right? Second is the part of the immune compatibility. So they would have to perform a number of tests where they take blood from Timothy and blood from the donor and run a battery of tests to see if the two match. And there's a percentage they give of the matching to say this will pass with minimal complications. Okay, just matching in terms of your blood group is not enough. There are other things that must match as well, and you must be as close to a perfect match as possible for you to be the right one. So yes, right now the brother is a person projected, but they're going to have to expose him to a number of tests. Then those tests will determine whether he's going to be the one to donate to Timothy, or we might have to look for another donor. The word is donor, and in English that means you're offering something that you have without expectation of reward, recognition, or otherwise. And therefore, this is a voluntary process that, in this case, the sibling is ready to offer to the best of her knowledge. It means it does not expect Timothy to come some kind of pay him, but the prayer for every donor, and I speak for even blood that you get from other donors, the prayer is that when you receive this tissue that their body has struggled to make for you, you will adhere to all the medical guidance, all the instructions about lifestyle modification, behaviors, and so on, that preserve that organ to the very best for you, because it was painful to get it. In other words, someone has to generate this blood, generate this bone marrow, generate this liver, this kidney, and so on within their body through their genetics. Something so expensive. And therefore, you as a recipient must adhere to whatever is needed to take. So all this we're talking about will be, redone by the specialists in this. So at this stage, we have the patient, we have a candidate for donation, for the transplant. Next is we have got a candidate for the donating, okay? That is the brother. The next step now is once this process is underway, they are going to undergo different tests, which will then inform us as to how compatible they are and whether this can proceed. If not, then we'll have to look into other donors. But it's very rare that a sibling would fail to match, especially if they're of the same blood groups.
So, wali wali nechibuzo ekirala kigendererwa.
Yeah, so he's going to give a Luganda version. Yes.
So, mugero agenda
I wish you just move this zino ngajeka ja bei ejibwa tegitukosa So bwe tuba tugenda okukola bone marrow transplant tuba tukebera ebintu bibiri. Ekisooka okulaba omubiri gw'omuntu oyo agenda okufuna oba gunaabeera fit okufuna procedure eyo, then ekirala ne tukebera kye tuyita compatibility, obutofaali bw'ono agenda okufuna bwenkana ki n'oli agenda okugaba. Kati mu mbeera gye tulimu leero ekisooka bye tukebedde organs ez'omunda tetulabawo kigaana ku bye tukebedde sofa tetulabawo kigaana. Naye ate n'ekirala ekirungi mbu mwami Timothy alina omuntu eyeewaddeyo okuwaayo obusomi. Mu condition eno ebiseera ebisinga tuba twagala doona oyo abeere muganda wo agenda okufuna. Ebiseera ebisinga omuntu aba tali mu eyo ssaako kiba kizibu oba kiba very even more expensive okukozesa omuntu atali. So ekyomukisa ekirungi mbu ajja okuwa obusomi waali ne organs ez'omunda ze tukebeddeko sofa tulaba mbu asobola okusustaininga okukola procedure. Naye okweyongerayo tujja kwetaagayo guidance ne obukugu obw'omusawo oli gwe tuyita ow'omusaayi gwe tugenda olaba enkya ku makya okwongerako ku tests zino tulabe nga agenda okuwa n'agenda okufuna genes zifaanana. Ebiseera ebisinga eyo chance ebeera nnene kubanga abantu bano babeera baava mu bantu be bamu, baba baafuna obutofaali nga genes ezimu za maama endala za taata. So bwe tufuna muganda we ekyo kye kiba kisingayo.
So what do I get to hear? So doctor, before we close up this, to ask about the bills, about these tests we are going to do, about the donor, and the other tests we're going to do on Timothy. Are they going to be done from here, or they have to be taken to any other country?
Tests ezimu twazikoze dda. Twazikoze, I think Dr. Daniel yabagamba eddwaliro ezawano eddwaliro zigenda zisasula. Naye era bantegeezezza mbu ne appointment eya hematologist nayo biiru eyo eddwaliro ligenda gifuukirwa. Tests endala awo ezimu zikolebwa mu ggwanga endala zifulumizibwa nga South Africa endala zijja kukolebwa mu ggwanga liri gye bajja okukolera transplant. I repeat in English, or that's
better. What I can say is that as TMR, we are going to do everything in our power to support Jayden. The tests that we can do within the hospital, we shall continue to do them. And the tests that can be done within the country, we shall support him. And maybe for the bigger drive, as Dr. Oscar said, the tests that will need to go out of the country, all that need to be done once Jayden has actually reached the country for the procedure, those will be taken care of by the bigger fund that we're trying to raise. Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay. What do you choose?
Yeah.
I had a friend that was senior one, but at least somehow somewhere else, when I saw Timothy for the first time, when Namudaba, like Yafana Nirabali, and someone would write the book. But it's a Tegera and it's a mind to believe. I mean, can it sit in you? Or is that the only side in a country when you are realized for sales or one person by healthy, that we need to name for sales?
Yes.
I have a baby girl, she's 5 years now. Naye daddy we is still but since I'm a mother, ensonga yazadde ffenna neetaagibwa okutwala omwana wange ku check up ndabe oba alina sickle cells oba omwana bw'aba akula wabawo signs ezeeraga nti kati waliwo signs nti omwana alibadde bwati ayinza okuba mulwadde oba asobola okukula nga tomanyi just from nowhere emukisuula nga mulwadde okwongera okwewala kesi ng'eno
Answer y'ekibuuzo ekisooka sikosel ebeera nga spectrum omuntu asobola okuba nga mulwadde nnyo mulwadde katono bwe bityo era ne crisis oba complication zino ezijja tezijja kyekimu waliwo abazifuna nga ate bato ddala waliwo abafuna ez'amaanyi ennyo waliwo abantu betumanyi nga almost buli wiiki aba mu ddwaliro either omusaayi guweddemu oba alina obulumi bungi so spectrum ekyuka kati n'endabika naye ekyuka waliwo abantu abalina obulwadde bunaye nga balabika bulungi n'okunsinga simbunze asingayo naye just that you cannot always tell the disease ng'otunulira muntu toyinza kubumanya so bw'obulwadde okumanya bukeberebwa mu laboratory ekirala ky'obuuzizza ffe ab'emyaka gino abasinga bwe batuzaalira teyali standard naye ennaku zino amalwaliro amanene omwana we bamuzaala bakebera status eyo mu malwaliro amanene gemmanyi so kati nga TMR so kati baba bakubuulira naye message ng'abasawo gye tuwa abantu mbu bw'oba ofunye munno nga nemba temupulaninze kuzaala kubanga mu Africa oluusi abaana bajja tetukoze eki tetupulaninze kibeera kirungi mu bintu bye mukebera nga mukebera akawuka n'ebirala mukebere mumanye so that musobola osalawo nga mukoze eki nga mutegedde edda ekitaliwo kati information ku ndwadde ezisinga yali ntono nnyo ng'ebintu ebisinga lyali nga ddogo biyale nga tuliyita ddogo talo biki mujjawe banyi ttaka webityo naye kati information weeri test weziri so kibeera kirungi nnyo abantu bonna kasita ofunye muno ng'omwaga twadvisinga mu kikole weebale kubuuza kibuuzo ekyo kubanga eno drive esobola okukola ebintu bibiri esobola okutaasa obulamu bwa mwami Timothy naye ate information ya mwami Timothy erina abantu bangi nnyo bejja okuyamba kubanga lack of knowledge mu ndaba eyange lack of knowledge ettanya abantu mu nsi yaffe okufuna omusawo amanye ekizibu kyo si kyangu so omuntu asobola okuba nga alaba abantu naye nga tafunangako muntu mutuufu nga bwe gambye naye twaseesinga emabega nga tulaba quality of care nga si bwe yandibadde nga bwe tusuubira bwe yandibadde so oyambye abantu abalala bangi obulwadde okulabika kisinziira kiyinza okwanguwa myezi 3 ng'omwana wa myezi bwezi kiyinza omumala emyaka 5 kiyinza mulimu omulwadde gwe naakalaba gwe twazuula nga mukulu yalina emyaka 23 ebbanga eryo lyonna yali takimanyi so yajja buzi mu ddwaliro ng'aweddemu omusaayi naye nga bwe tukebera mu laabu obutofaali bwe tulaba nga bufaananamu ki obweyo endwadde kwekola test eyo ekonfaminga so amazima amatuufu obulwadde bwandibadde bukeberebwa oba nandibugezesezza bugeraageranya ne siriimu lw'omufunye si lwalabika naye bw'okebera osobola omulaba mangu ng'obulwadde tebunakola ki naye bw'oba ozwalidde mu ddwaliro eddene zino test bazikola rutiinire omwana lwe bamuzadde mu nnaku nga ziizo bajjako omusaayi ne bakebera ne bakubuulira abantu bedda tebakikolanga so oba weetaaga okgenda gwe nga gwe
olw'obudde tulina ekibuuzo ekyasinze otuleeta wano biri ebintu bibiri so doctor kino ekibuuzo kiri gye muli TMR team is Jayden sick is Jayden a sickler ku bye mwakebedde oba nedda kino kibuuliza nno bannayuganda because abasinga bagamba si mulwadde like he's not sick is he sick okusinziira ku mu bye mwakebedde
so maybe I Is it sickler?
Is it
Sick and is sickler.
So let's first eliminate certain words that are quite abusive. The word sickler,
And it's in the Dr. Okay.
yes, the word sickler is
Sala zamwe.
the word sickler seems to find it to make it easy for us to communicate to each other, but in the truth it is stigmatizing, and it's not a word that we recommend to use. What happens is that Jayden has got a condition called sickle cell disease. It means he inherited genes from both parents that cause his red blood cells to sickle. So yes, he's got a disease called sickle cell disease, not a lie. Sickle cell disease comes with a spectrum of complications, one of which is that the amount of hemoglobin in your blood tends to be lower than normal, which is called anemia, and therefore that complication called sickle cell anemia. Then he also has complications that affect other organs. For example, the one that brought him to the hospital. In this case, he had anemia, but also had acute chest syndrome. So this is not a hoax. It's saddening to learn how cynical we as citizens have become. And maybe it is true that out there are people who are frauds or who do certain things, but it's just the weirdest thing to act out an illness. Please respect the people who are going through certain things, and they are trying their best to cope and live life like you as due to genetic advantage, first of all, by not having sickle cell anemia. Okay, so it is true. Jayden was diagnosed with sickle cell disease when he was a little baby, and his life outside the limelight that you know him for has been the kind I described previously, of pain, of requiring hospitalization, of sleeping or staying awake when everyone should be sleeping because of the threat and trouble his life has been. His family has been through all this. Okay? Now we are trying to change that for him as well. So it's only reasonable that we join the cause and support him. Thank you.
Olulimi Oluganda.
Ekibuuzo tubuuzizza oba ababadde ekibuuzo ekibuuziddwa kya Dr. Kyaddamu, Dr. Okello kyatuwadde mu Luzungu kibadde eri Abannayuganda bagamba nti si mulwadde kuba abadde aseka nga tetukola naye. So Dr. agenda kuddamu bigambo bya Dr. Okello byatuwadde. Mubaddemu byenjagala aleme kubuusa maaso nga kasinika.
Kitokera oluzungu eruyitirivu nyonyoza obutamalaako naye information jagituusa. So simanyi Jayden nga bwe mumuyita kituufu mulwadde. Obulwadde bwa Nalubiri bwazuulibwa muto, naye era ne wano era eyo test twagikoze ekonfaminga era nayo neeraga kyekimu. N'ekirala we yajjidde era kituufu yabadde alina complication eva ku bulwadde obwo gye tuyita acute chest syndrome. Mpozi ekirala tekyayagala nnyo ebiseera bino ku abantu okubayita ekigambo ekyo ekya siikira. Tekiriimu buntu, si kya buntu okikozesa. Okugeza omuntu bw'aba n'obulwadde bwa sukaali, tetugamba mulwadde wa sukaali, tugamba omuntu alina obulwadde obwo. So kituufu alina obulwadde bwa Nalubiri, naye okutangaazaamu mu public tetwagala kukozesa kigambo ekyo ono siikira. Tugamba omuntu alina obulwadde bwa Nalubiri. Mu Luzungu ne tugamba someone with sickle cell disease, nonte siikira. Kiri ekigambo oba kivoola simanyi, kiri inhumane, tekiri si kya buntu bulungi. Edda bwe kyalinga nga tukikozesa, naye kati ekyo kiba tetukyakikozesa.
So ndowooza ekyo ekibuuzo Abannayuganda ekibadde kyabuuzibwa kiddiddwamu. Ekibuuzo ekyokubiri Dokita, we came here nga tulina abantu abagala medical report. This is a medical report, eri verbal. So if we get people who would love to support Jayden, will the hospital be able to present that medical report eri written? If we get people who can support, like people from the government who would love to come here to see if it is true, the medical report is around, will you be able to deliver or to present it?
Yes, so thank you. So yes, absolutely. First is that every patient who gets through TMR gets discharged with a special medical report. That usually this is medical information meant for communication to fellow health workers. That means if you are to interpret it, ideally you need to conscript the services of a medical person to help you understand what is there. That is number one. Number two is a medical report to aid the fundraising process will also be developed by the facility, which will have information that can be used by someone who thought CRE is better than biology. Essentially, so in other words, shall make a medical report that can be used for other purposes as well. And more importantly, as Dr. Talemwa mentioned earlier on, TMR is going to walk this journey with Jayden and the family all through. And that means at any given time when more information and support is necessary, we are available to provide more backbone. Yeah.
So, tweyanza, thank you TMR team. Thank you the hospital. Tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzike bannange ebibuuzo ndowooza tukomaawo. So now, Oluganda.
So tujja Mwami Timothy tujja muwa report ey'abasawo nga bwe kiri mu ddwaliro ekwata ku bulamu bw'ebiki bye tukoze ne plan. Naye kubanga olw'amateeka g'obusawo waliwo report gye tujja omuwa nga ye ekwata ku bulamu bwe ye wa ddembe okugisharinga oba nedda. Ng'era bwe gubadde leero tusoose funa lukusa oba okusabibwa okuva ye ne maama okwogera bye twogera leero. Naye tusobola okukola ripooti endala esobola okumuyambako okufuna ssente n'obuyambi bwonna yenna ali eyo yandyetaaze. Ekyo nakyo kisobola okukolebwa.
So omulwadde waffe alinayo kyonna kyoyagala okugamba bannayuganda? Olinayo kyoyagala okwogera?
Just thank them for the support, and that's it.
Tobimanyidde ebyama.
Mwasibye mutya mwasize mutya asubire muli bulungi. Sinzira wani ku TMR omulwadde wammwe ow'ensi yonna bannayuganda bwe basondedde obusomyo. Njagala bategeeza nti bwe musondedde obusomyo kati ali mu mbeera ki nungi. Abasawo ba TMR bamuyambyeko okudde ki engulu era nga mbeebaza mwenna abatukwatiddeko. I had a lot of people abazze, abalala bakubye amasimu, abalala nfunye sente z'abannayuganda okuva e Butambala, Bukwingiri, Dubai n'ensi eziriraanyeewo bannange. Sente z'abannayuganda nzifunye mu buli nsonda. So njagala obbakola ki? Beebaza. Yes, and I want to thank the doctor. Thank you very much. Manyi tulwa ofuna treatment zino wezi. So I had someone yangambye omwana oyo bamutwaleko e Mulago mbaddeyo okumala emyaka 2. So inalowooza nti sibangayo nali nkoze eki? Manyi ebyayo bikola ki? Bwe bikola naye kati twaga tugezeeko ne ku bya TMR, right? Tulabe bwe bikola ki? Bwe bikola, but so far the experience is very good. Thank you. Ayina engalo ezigonda. So ono musawo doctor yati ne bano ye, these are my friends now here we work as friends yes, my friends we batuyambako okukola ki okudda engulu na Uganda naye nga nebaza nnyo all media teams that have been here zino media team bano bonna abantu boolaba waniino press conference beebaza nnyo ekyo mukitaddemu amaanyi singa abadde muyimbi singa temuli bangi bwe muti yes naye mundaze nti munayi ndi mulwadde wammwe w'amaanyi nnyo e Kampala wano so mbebazizza nnyo abo boolaba netugenda bba wano transport bajjidde bweriiti so mundaze omuki wano so kalo bikakkamira tufayo twebaza abantu naabo zunga musaati ya white yimirira alowooza buno bwe musiying so tubebaliza ddala wano lino eddwaliro bannayinzi nadde sirimanyiye liriko price discrimination bw'oba mwavu tolikola ki tolimanya so obudde buno nagaggawaddemu kati oba olaba ndimanyi era n'abatalimanyi mwena mwena nja kubategeeza TMR tuli wano eno naalya yes era nga bannayuganda mwena mwena bali half Ugandans from diaspora banyambyeko nina n'abapadde merchant code bagimperedde bwere ne baŋŋamba titugenda kutemako yadde ki 10 yes bannayuganda bakuteereko ssente yes so medical reports ne teams ebisigadde reports ezo tujja tuzikola ki tuziproducing mpola cause we have promised some funds from very very many people bagamba nti nze bwendabira ku kipapulo obukadde mbukoze eki nga mbuleeta so sawa yonna dokita nga wagambye ajjaba abawa kuki ku bipapula wabula tujja gabako ebyo ebikkiriziganyidwako mukitegeera yes tugenda we shall only provide those papers that we only have consent about it yes cause as a patient and as a medical institute as a patient and a medical institute there are some guidelines rules kwe batambulira nti empapula ezimu tebalina zikola ki kuziteeka mu media olw'okukuuma privacy y'omulwadde wabula kati wano ebyatuuse omulwadde yaluzinze privacy si kulwange nzekka wabula kulw'abalwadde abalala bakola ki abali eyo yes I'm not doing this thing for my own yes nkikolera abalwadde abalala bangi abali eyo just obalaga nti kikola ki kisoboka yes thank you.
Thank you very much. Jayden, thank you. I think no questions for him. Yes. If you have any questions, you can direct them to us. Zubaida is going to share the merchant code and she's going to share more information. But I want to thank Jayden in a special way because what he's doing is not only for himself, it is for the entire country and for the couples that are planning to get married and for parents who are struggling with children who have this illness and for those patients who have this illness. Okay, so I want to thank him for allowing himself to go into the public eye to talk about this disease and try and find solutions to this. Also want to thank Madam Annette Kayanja. Yes, she's right there. She's the one who told us about Jayden's condition on a Thursday when we had a chat. And I want to thank Zubaida because she immediately told her he brought him to the hospital. And unfortunately, as we were discussing, he was already attacked. But now it's very important for the media. We need to give Jayden the privacy that he deserves and also the support that he deserves. I've discussed in detail with Zubaida and the rest of the team that in this fundraising, we would want him not to overmove from place to place, looking for money. And I know they have worked very much together to see that they get the codes and they get the bank accounts where people can deposit money, rather than him moving from one place to the other. Okay, and then secondly, Dr. Kero had hinted on it. We know we live in a world that sometimes is ungrateful. But some of these conditions, we find ourselves with them. Okay, so if there is anyone who has any doubt regarding Jayden's condition, okay, it's only in order that instead, before you go onto TikTok or on Twitter or X or any other media, first find out. Okay, let us not use him for the sake of our personal gains, but to make sure that whatever we do is in the interest of the patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. ndowooza kyetusigazaayo abantu babadde basindika ssente okuva eno story we yafuluma era nga Shamimu agambye tugenda kufunako layita abamu ku betwogeddeko nga Rukappe Jayden'S gy'agambye eyatuwadde merchant code, but before that tugenda kusaba Marvin atuwe ku accountability embalirira ya ssente twakuŋŋaanyawo tetukyasoma because muuli gye batugambye ekintu ki bawulire eziriwo ezakayingira
kalima bini tusaba okozesa ekasipiida abantu bali baddayo ku matijjikola ekikulu bamanyi abannayuganda bamanyi tugende mu maaso
nkozesa Luganda
Luganda babadde basonda basinga wansi
Tusabye okuwa.
Njatandika n'okwebaza abayimiridde ne Kayanja muganda wange oba gwe tumanyi nga Timothy abamu bamanyi nga Jayden. Nja kwebaza media abayimiridde naye ddala bakola nabo Kantu Nation empulira beeyita. We thank you very much Madam Zubeda. Muvuumiddwa ne babanyiga naye twebaza osigala nga muyimiridde naffe. Nja kwebaza eddwaliro, so we're so thankful. Tweyanza nnyo. Nze yatambulako ne Jayden nga tetunnafuna kifo wano. Twetaaga okwebaza ku ddwaliro. Ffe tumanyi gye tuvudde. Nja kwebaza Abannayuganda abasigadde nga baweereza ssente weewaawo nga abamu ku bannaffe bavumirira cause gye tuliko. Nja kwebaza Abannayuganda bayimiridde ne Jayden mu kaseera kano okuva nga talina yadde n'ekikumi until today when we have at least wetutandikira. Nja kwebaza maama abadde ne Timothy ebbanga lyonna nze nabeerako naye emirundi 2-3 mu ddwaliro naye kitiisa. Maama weebale nnyo okuyimirira ne Kayanja n'obutapowa. Ekirala nja kwebaza Timothy ng'omuntu obutapowa, not giving up upon his life. Nze najja wano ku Saturday nga Timothy osooka mutuukako kutegeera, but I'm happy that he's really talking right now. Cause eno yatandika ku Monday, December 1st, I think nga akantu kafulumye ati Zubeda tebaali bakoze. Era twafuna omuntu eyasooka otuweereza ssente ezasooka baali bamuyita Nakawombe Jenbera nga yaweereza emitwalo 10 ku ssaawa 11:42. Empapula nnyingi nnyo Abannayuganda abali eyo tetunalya ssente ya muntu temuweereza mukyala Zubeda Uncle Kasuku ne Shalom kulya ssente baabu. Tugenda nga ku executive media tugezeeko basomera abantu abaweereza ssente. Naye olwokuba tuli ku conference tulina okufunzafunza akadde munzikirize ntemeeteme tusavuwaze tuveeyo. Tukozesezza enkola 4 oba 5 mwe tuyise okuweereza ssente nga muno tubadde ne Airtel Money, Mobile Money ze zasinga okutambula. Tubadde ne Rukappe ne GoFundMe link ezitambudde. Rukappe bajja gibannyonnyolako mu maaso awo naye yasobola otuwa merchant esobola okujoininga mobile monies. Waliwo Airtel, waliwo MTN osobola okuweereza Jayden'S ssente. As of today, December nga 9, 2025, ssente eziriwo ziri obukadde 79 mu mitwalo 7.
agenda kuddamu
Ngenda kuddamu tene waggulu. As of now nga wentudde wano ssente zemmanyi ziri obukadde 79 mu emitwalo 719 mwemu. Twongera bagamba Bannayuganda nga Anti Zubeda wabagamba ssente ezo mutuweereza tegula yadde akatunda k'omulwadde wabula bagala omulwadde be bakola ki be bakatuwa. Tulina emitwalo 7 tulina obukadde 79 mu emitwalo 719 mu nnusu emu n'obutundutundu 0.8. Lwaki tulina 0.8? Waliwo abantu abadde baweereza ssente okuva ebweru nga tuzikonvatinga mu shillings ze Uganda tufunamu obutundutundu. Mu dola tulina emitwalo 2,125,224 n'obutundutundu 96. Nyongera okwebaza Abannayuganda bayimiridde ne Kayanja muganda wange mu kaseera akazibu kano ke tulimu, era nyongera okubasaba tebamalaamu maanyi nti tulya ssente zammwe nedda bambi ssente weeziri era tukwatira ewamu Kayanja agenda bba bulungi nga we yagambye we are not doing it for his own but for the country at large. Amen. Amannya agange bampita Luyombya Marvin oba bampita Luyani.
Okay, bannange tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzenga Bannayuganda nga bwe nabagambye bagenda tu discharging wano Dr. Daniel agenda tubulira Jayden lwava wano era atubulire is Jayden allowed okuddamu okukola nga bw'abadde akola oba kati bagenda mu limitinga. Kyakubiri Abannayuganda ssente yammwe yeeyo buli wiiki Marvin agenda tuyamba okujja okubawa updates. Then ekintu kya akawunti Dr. Daniel naye yabadde yakyogeddeko tugenda kugulawo account egenda okubanga egendako ensimbi yammwe era tubajja bawanga update ku nsimbi yammwe ey'obusomi.
Tutuno ebbaasa eva ku Baba TV bannange
ey'omusaala jangu so banaye twebaza nnyo Bannayuganda tulina empisa mpitirivu era twagala bategeeza tetuli banyiivu ku byonna ebyogerwa tuli basanyufu era twagala bategeeza tetulinamu yadde entonda ate nga tubagamba mulina right okwemulugunya ku buli kimu kyemunaatugamba tuli beetegefu
bannange ebbaasa eno eva ku Baba TV. Thank you so much. Ebbaasa yino
erimu ssente mmeka?
sinaba kugisoma. Then honorable bali ekuyagambye agenda muwa $10,000 olwo
omusaala gwesiza abusomi
ezo z'omusaala mulega banaye omusaala gwange naye Dr. Honorable atulira Dr. Honorable balieku madam yagambye amuwadde $1,000 n'olwekyo ezo ngenda kubeera nga nzireeta nga nzituusa okategedde akantu ako kweyanza nnyo Abannayuganda okutukwatiramu ndowooza ebigambo bye bayogedde ebya ssente mwabitegedde nti we estimated a wrong amount okategedde akagambo k'oluzungu tukyetaagira ddala ssente okutuufuma mutume naye ekisinga bw'oba oyogera ku Jayden ne posita n'ennamba z'essimu wali eri naye nga munnange nga tetunaba kugenda wala kubanga nziruka omwana wange agenda kuyonka njagala kubeera nga nkola ki neyanza Dr. Daniel n'abasawo mwenna bannange tweyanziza nnyo webale tetuli bangungu bwetutyo oluusi abamu batabukamu olw'empisa tusiiwuukamu naye nga munnaye webale kubeera nga mutugumiikiriza mwenna eddwaliro bannaye ttiimu mami Jayden nawe munnaye tweyanziza mwenna abali ku kintu kino temujjaamu mukono ebigambo tebitta muntu okategedde nti munnaye bwe tunaamuvaako ani anaamubeerako tewali okategedde n'olwekyo Abannayuganda mbadde nsaba mwekwatekwate esente zinyaga nzikuterekere ezo ez'omusaala olaba nasemba kukola twakola adde sinafu naye nga munnange tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzenge Mukama abankeereki omusomo olungi tuli naawe
nsaba okutangazaamu katono obukadde Honorable Balyeku bwagenda oweereza Jayden nadde yankubidde essimu n'aŋŋamba sobuli kugira emitwalo 2 gye nsomye. Yabadde aŋŋambye yazifunye ye kennyini yabadde bwe yaŋŋambye ku ssimu kati it's okay n'ekisembayo Abannayuganda oba byonna gye nsaba kunsaasira Timothy yaŋŋambye ssente azifunye kyenva nazigasseeko okay? Naye nsaba Abannayuganda abali mu nsi yonna abadde bakozesa GoFundMe enkadde tusaba ssente ezaaliko mutuyambe muzidde muziweereze. GoFundMe enkadde eyo yayiika yaliko obukadde approximately 12 buli omu ne bamuddiza ssente ze. Abannayuganda bali abali bayimiridde naffe kweyo GoFundMe link enkadde mbadde nsaba n'obuwombefu obw'ekitalo bambi mudde mutuweereza akasente ako byebyo ebyange nsigadde nze Luyombya Marvin azaaliko.
Okay, you can raise up your hand.
Okay, simububire naye wamma mbadde nsaba Marvin